Hey guys, it's Simon here with Hobbies of Man once again, and today we're doing another comic book issue review for the Sword and Sorcery book club. Today we're looking at Conan the Barbarian number 20. This is the latest in the Conan the Barbarian series. It's still Jim Sub writing, and in this case we have Doug Braithwaite as the artist here for the second issue in his 2-issue arc. Technically it's a 4-issue arc if you combine it with Danica Brin's 2-issue arc. It is technically one story all tied together, but the way it reads to me actually feels more like two separate arcs that kind of tie into each other. But you know, it doesn't really make too much of a difference. They are going to be collected in issue 4, I guess, or volume 4 of the Conan the Barbarian series. Actually, is it 5 at this point? Let's see. There's the first 3. That's for the Battle of the Blackstone. Then there's Frozen Faith, so that's 4. So I guess this would be collected in the 5th volume. And Diego Rodriguez is still the colorist here, and well, he does a pretty good job here, mostly because there's no orange tinted stuff. I really feel kind of bad for always bringing it up, but I really did not enjoy his initial work with Doug Braithwaite on issues 4, 5, and 6. No, 5, 6, and 7, and 8. Oh wait, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, on 5, 6, and 7, and I guess with 8 as well. But since then, I guess he's gotten better, or I've enjoyed his work more, which is, you know, overall good. And in terms of the issue itself, this is pretty good. I quite liked it. I enjoy the concept behind this, which is Conan needs to get exorcised. He has this demon spirit inside him, and Zula happens to be the right kind of shaman in order to take it out of him, right? That requires them to go through some difficulties first. So Conan and Zula start fighting, right? And they've been fighting since the end of the last issue, right? And Zula tells Conan that he won't escape, that he cannot allow these dirty serpent men to be in his home, right? And so the fierce battle continues, right? And Conan tells him, you know, he is not a follower of Set. He does not know what Zula is talking about. And Zula doesn't believe him initially, right? But Conan still yells at him, you know, I'm not the enemy unless you make me one. And so they continue fighting. Conan eventually breaks the fight in order to run for his weapon, and he manages to grab it just in time for Zula to transform into a panther again. And Conan ends up kind of chokeholding him and holding a sword to his neck. And Conan, you know, tries to, you know, stab him, but he ultimately decides to stop. He says, you know, I'm not a snake. Please end your hunt, right? Or something along those lines. It's not as nice as what I just said, but it is something in that kind of vein. And, well, Zula does not. He actually becomes a woman at this point. He transforms into a female form, kind of calling back to the Zula that we see in Conan the Destroyer, I think, the second series, or the second movie, with Arnold Schwarzenegger. And I actually quite like this. I thought that was really cool. I wonder how many people are going to be okay with this. I know that in kind of the modern sense, there really isn't necessarily a problem with what's going on here. It's pretty fine, but well, the vast majority of the population that reads Conan is, you know, people in their 50s. And here in the States, in the current, you know, political climate, sorts of people like that are quite polarized, right? And this sort of stuff here, turning a man into a woman and back, feels kind of maybe triggering for that sort of folk. And I'm curious to see what the fallback or the kind of concept is going to be. Because, you know, on one hand, Jim and company are doing the right thing here by bringing all of these things together from all of the different iterations of Conan, right? And so Zula comes from an original story from Howard, and then she was, you know, gender bent in order to appear in the movie, to have like the female warrior character in those movies. And now we're coming full circle here and becoming kind of like a singular character that has the ability to transform between the two. And I quite like that. I think it's cool. It also kind of adds a little bit of mysticism in the kind of like Mayan sense, right? Or like the very old school stuff where, you know, you kind of harken back to like the androgynous gods and stuff like this. And kind of the idea that shamans or people that have magic are people that don't fit into the standard boxes that we as a society think they do, right? So I actually find this quite valuable and quite cool, but I wonder what the issue will be, like how the reception to the issue will be, right? So let me know what you think down below. I have no issue with it personally. I thought it was cool. But I'm sure that there's plenty of people that will have problems, and I want to hear what your thoughts on those are, right? If you are someone that has a problem, please let me know. And if you're someone that doesn't have a problem, please let me know as well. I would like to see kind of where we all land on this, right? So she becomes a woman, and then she explains to Conan that he has been tainted by Set in some way, probably when he was stabbed by the fangs of the serpent. And she sends him on a spirit quest, basically. And she says, in the far mountains away from here, when the sun rises, you will see a figure, and you will have to travel to this figure, right? And so when the sun rises, we see this giant head. And I liked it a lot. I thought it was cool because this is like an Olmec head, or at least it looks like an Olmec head from a distance. And kind of when we get closer to it, we see that it does look very Olmec head-esque. And I like this. On one hand, there is kind of this like issue that has existed where initially people used to think that the Olmec heads were African people that had moved to the Americas, and then that kind of made it so white, scientists like mess with natives in a kind of shitty way, right? It was kind of dealing with this sort of racial stuff, but at the same time, natives from those areas do look like those Olmec heads. So they're not black, they're, Asian descent, Americans, right? Because that's how we came to be here in the Americas, through the Bering Land Bridge, right? And most of those would have been, Asian, Chinese, Russian type people that eventually turned into Native Americans, right? And so I like that. I think it's cool to kind of call this back because there is this kind of sense of ancient archaeology, ancient aliens, and kind of like alternative archaeology and alternative history in Robert E. Howard's work, right? And so having this be an Olmec head, even though maybe it isn't an Olmec head, right? Maybe it is like a proper African head, is cool. I liked it. I thought it was really fun. And so he sees it, he's like, oh shit, what the hell? I did not notice that before. And I think it's because Zula kind of made it appear this time, whereas usually it'd be kind of covered in a veil or something, right? And so he makes it all the way over there. He kind of treks through this jungle quite easily, actually. And he thinks back on his struggles with Stygians before, right? He talks about Numala when he meets the Gorgon, right? He talks about some other times he's interacted with set characters and some other interactions with Snake Men. And ultimately he's like, okay, well, I guess there is a reason why I've been infected by them, right? Even though I don't trust them, even though I don't think about them, even though I don't like them, I have had so many interactions with them that there's a problem, right? And that's kind of what he falls under. Which is kind of interesting. I guess that means he doesn't know that the fangs of the serpent were the issue, the reason why this happened, but I guess it's not that important, right? And so he eventually reaches the summit, and they end up doing a magical ritual there to separate the evil spirit from his body, right? And so we get this green, black kind of Conan shadow with this crazy hair, right? And it's pretty cool. I like it a lot, actually. I think it looks really nice. Doug Braithwaite did a good job with all the art this time. And so the spirit is separated from Conan. Zula starts fighting it. The spirit is actually quite strong, and it can actually hurt Zula. So Zula kind of backs off. Conan grabs his, Pictish sword, and he stabs the spirit with it. And because it's been imbued with godly power previously, and it can take down the black stone, it can also hurt these, these evil spirits, these set things. And so he stabs it, and he manages to push it back, right? There is kind of a nebulous explosion or something that happens, and then Conan and Zula wake up later, and they're both alive, and they're both well, and Conan and him kind of part ways on a good kind of standing with each other, right? And then we transition over to kind of this, what's it called? Like post-credit scene almost, kind of, or this, epilogue, where we see that the girl from issue 17 and 18, I forgot her name, it was like a very distinct name, but I don't remember it, sorry, selling the fangs of the serpent to this random merchant that deals in these kind of sorts of things. And it happens that this merchant is actually being controlled by the serpent men who have shown up to kill her and steal these daggers, right? And that's where it ends. So we know that there's this setup here. There's also this interesting kind of conversation that happens throughout the issue about Set. And when I think of Set, I think of like a male god, right? I think previously it has been that way, but in some of the language used here in this issue, we kind of approximate the fact that Set might be a female god, right? A snake goddess, as it were. And I think that might deal with some of the stuff that's coming from the next couple issues, not necessarily with the fact that Set himself is a female god, although the fact is that most gods are kind of generally androgynous. I mean, they could have, and they usually did appear as like a single gender, but you know, the Abrahamic God is technically an androgynous being, right? It is technically male, but also God is the mother, right? So it's also a female. And I think that Jim might be leaning into this sort of stuff in this case. And I think that'll be cool. I like that. I think it's interesting to see Conan fight a female opponent. Usually he doesn't really. I think the only time I can remember him doing that is in the Suthal of the Dusk short story, where he's interacting with the Shemite woman, right? And she's kind of the only one in the region that is not seduced by the lotus flowers or whatever. And that's maybe the only time that I remember Conan fighting a woman. So it'll be interesting if he does end up fighting this, like, you know, set priestess or whatever. So that'll be pretty cool. I quite like that. I think the issue itself was pretty great. Doug Braithwaite did a good job with the artwork here. Rodriguez's colors were pretty stunning, pretty good this time. And I enjoyed the story a lot. I thought that the twist with the Zula character were pretty nice. I enjoyed the exorcism aspect. I enjoyed the fact that they battled the spirit. And I like where the story is going. So I'm very excited to see where this Scourge of the Serpent stuff ends up going, right? So yeah, those are my thoughts there when it comes to the main story. In terms of you know, other stuff that was featured here, so we have a cover gallery, which is pretty nice. They're doing a much better job with the cover galleries this time. I think that the thumbnails are bigger, so you can enjoy them much better. We also have a Jeff essay, and this one is about shapeshifters, and it's about the fact that Conan has mostly dealt with snake men and werewolves, but in the history of Robert E. Howard's kind of Hyborian and Arthurian age, there are technically, you know, supposed to be like Batman and Catwoman and Wolfmen and wolf people in general. And, you know, there's also kind of other beings that are intelligent in some ways. We talk about the fact that there was a were hyena in one of the stories, and that there's quite a few different wolfmen characters that Robert E. Howard, you know, wrote about. So that's pretty cool. I did enjoy the story in one of the previous Savage stories where Conan becomes a werewolf, although I felt that that would have been a much longer story and it could have been like a multi-issue thing. So I actually do enjoy this a lot, and I did enjoy the stories with the were-tiger men as well, so that's pretty cool. I think there's a very natural predisposition that humanity has towards human-animal hybrids, especially in the olden religions, right? And so I really enjoy that. I think it's cool to have Conan battle these creatures, right? And in the kind of in a sense, it is kind of like man versus nature, right? So I enjoyed that quite a bit. And then we had some interesting stuff in the chainmail here. So one of the guys that comments here quite often, Otto Houlihan, I think is his name, and I think the numbers associated with it are 2743 or something like that. So he constantly comments on the channel. I really appreciate his contributions, and he actually ended up being featured on chainmail this time. So, you know, congrats to Otto for being able to show up on chainmail. I think I'll probably end up you know, submitting some questions at some point. I did end up doing questions with Sean at one point, and I think he asked Jim and Doug for me back when they were doing Frozen Faith, but I don't remember if I ever got like a call out on the paper, you know, on the credits for those questions. So it's pretty cool. I hope that maybe one day I do. So I'll probably end up submitting some chainmail of my own, right? So yeah, those are all of my thoughts here on Conan number 20. Let me know what you think down below. Thank you so much for watching, and see you guys later.